Now, I've heard of wrong numbers, but this here was something else. Bob was relaxing on the porch swing, sipping sweet tea when the phone rang. "Hello," he drawled, expecting it to be Cletus about their fishing trip. Instead, a real official-sounding fella says, "Is this Mr. Robert J. Hill?" Bob almost choked on his tea. "Who's asking?" he managed. "This is NASA, Mr. Hill. We'd like to offer you a position in our astronaut program." Now, Bob liked watching them space movies as much as the next fella, but this had to be a prank. "Astronaut? Me? You got the wrong number, son. I ain't even good with airplanes," he chuckled, ready to hang up. But the voice on the other end continued, describing Bob's extensive knowledge of engines and machinery, thanks to his years of tinkering and fixing things. Turns out, NASA was looking for a resourceful fella, someone who could handle anything with a roll of duct tape and a prayer. Bob, with his years of experience keeping his beat-up truck running, fit the bill perfectly. After much convincing and reassuring that there'd be plenty of grits, Bob finally agreed. This hilljack was going to space. He looked down at his trusty hound dog, Buster, who was snoozing at his feet. "Well, Buster, looks like we're going on an adventure. And this time, I ain't even got to pack a cooler." Let me tell you, sending Bob to space camp was like sending a raccoon to a tea party. All these highfalutin scientists in their white coats, and then there's Bob, showing up in his overalls and a Kiss My Grits t-shirt. The other astronauts, all stiff and serious, looked at him like he was a bug on a biscuit. First day of training, they put him in a centrifuge, spins you around real fast to simulate G-forces. Bob walks in, sees the contraption, and says, "Y'all trying to make me churn butter in here?" The other astronauts, pale and nervous, just stared at him. Bob hopped in, whistling a tune, and said, "Let her rip!" Next up, zero-gravity training. Now this tickled Bob, floating around like a catfish in a bathtub. He even managed to pull off a few tricks, spinning like a top and doing what he called the space jig. The scientists were impressed by his natural balance and coordination, though they wouldn't admit it out loud. Now, space ain't all sunshine and moonbeams. Take the space toilet, for instance. Bob's first encounter with that contraption was something straight out of a comedy show. See? It ain't as simple as sitting and doing your business. There's tubes and suction and all sorts of fancy gadgets involved. Bob, being a simple man, figured it was just like any other toilet, only fancier. Well, let's just say his aim wasn't too good. Next thing you know, there's a rogue wet wipe floating around the cabin and Bob's trying to catch it with a fishing net he'd snuck on board. The other astronauts were in stitches, laughing so hard they could barely breathe. "Y'all never seen a man fish for a wipe before?" Bob exclaimed, finally snagging the errant object. From then on, he was the designated space plumber, in charge of teaching the others how to use the high-tech commode. Despite the challenges, Bob was starting to feel right at home among the stars. He even warmed up to the other astronauts. They'd gather round in the evening, eating their freeze-dried ice cream and telling stories. Bob, of course, was a natural storyteller. He had him rolling with tales of his escapades back home, like the time he wrestled a wild boar for a watermelon, or when he accidentally glued himself to his truck while fixing the tailpipe. Turns out, even astronauts need a good laugh now and then. They started looking forward to Bob's stories, and Bob, in turn, started seeing these city slickers as his own kind of space cowboys. They were all in it together, after all, floating around in a tin can millions of miles from home. Duct tape, the astronaut's best friend. Now every mission has its hiccups, and Bob's was no different. During a spacewalk to repair a satellite, a panel came loose, threatening their oxygen supply. Panic set in, but not for Bob. He pulled out his trusty roll of duct tape, a gift from his mama before he left Earth. "Don't you worry none," he said with a wink. "This here duct tape can fix anything." And fix it he did, securing the panel tighter than a tick on a hound dog. The other astronauts watched in awe as Bob, with the calm precision of a surgeon, saved the day with nothing but his wits and his trusty tape. Back on Earth, NASA engineers were scratching their heads, wondering how Bob managed to pull it off. They'd never considered duct tape as a viable solution to a space emergency. From then on, every astronaut was issued a special Bob's Emergency Duct Tape Kit, just in case. Mission accomplished, kinda sorta. After weeks in space, it was time to come home. The landing was a bit rougher than expected, with the capsule bouncing off the desert floor like a skipped rock. Bob emerged from the wreckage, a little worse for wear but grinning from ear to ear. Well, he said, dusting himself off, that was a ride and a half. The mission was considered a success, thanks in no small part to Bob's quick thinking and even quicker duct tape. He'd not only proven that you don't need a fancy degree to be a hero, but he'd also shown the world that sometimes the simplest solutions are the best. Home sweet home, space smell and all. Back on Earth, Bob was a celebrity. Newspapers called him the duct tape astronaut and the hillbilly hero. He even got to meet the president, who shook his hand and said, "You're a real inspiration, son." But for all the fame, Bob was itching to get back to his simple life. He missed his porch swing, his fishing pole, and most of all, his trusty hound dog Buster. So after a whirlwind tour of TV appearances and public speeches, Bob hightailed it back home. From Hilljack to Hero Bob's grand welcome. Now, the folks back home, they'd rolled out the red carpet for their hometown hero. The whole town showed up, banners flying, flags waving. There was a parade, a potluck dinner, and even a line dancing competition in Bob's honor. Bob, overwhelmed by the love and attention, just grinned and shook his head. "Y'all are making too big a fuss over nothing," he said. But deep down, he was touched. He'd gone from Hilljack Bob to Astronaut Bob, and somehow along the way, he'd become a symbol of hope and ingenuity for folks all over the world. Back to the roots, once a Hilljack, always a Hilljack. Life eventually settled back to normal. Bob went back to tinkering with his truck, fishing with Cletus, and sipping sweet tea on his porch. But things were different now. He had a lifetime supply of duct tape, a framed picture of him shaking hands with the president, and a whole lot of stories to tell. He'd seen the Earth from space, a tiny blue marble against the vastness of the universe, and it made him realize just how precious life is. He learned that no matter where you come from, whether you're a Hilljack or a hotshot scientist, everybody's got something to offer. And sometimes all it takes is a little bit of ingenuity, a whole lot of duct tape, and a heart full of courage to make a difference.